Welcome to the deep dive. Our mission today is to explore the narrowest part of history. Those moments when the entire future of Homo sapiens was really put into question. For most of human history, the idea that our line could just end, it felt impossible, almost mythological. We sort of viewed our own existence as inevitable.
Like a guarantee.
An unbreakable guarantee, yeah.
But the deeper we dig into our evolutionary past and, the more we study our present vulnerabilities, that whole reassuring sense of inevitability just vanishes.
It's a very modern realization, isn't it? This idea of our profound fragility.
It really is. For millennia, whether you were an ancient philosopher or a medieval theologian, the prevailing wisdom held that value, intelligent life was indestructible.
That even if a world ended, it would just cycle back.
Exactly, it would cycle back, or intelligent minds would simply re-evolve somewhere else. But the modern concept of existential risk, or X-risk, it changes that paradigm entirely.
And how do we define X-risk today?
We define it as any threat that could annihilate intelligent life or irreversibly limit its future potential. Today, we have to confront this unsettling truth that the physical universe could just keep spinning aimlessly forever without us.
So our mission today is to unpack 4 critical historical incidents. We're spanning from millions of years ago to the Cold War and beyond. And these events brought humanity to the absolute brink.
And they show how the nature of the threat has changed, and maybe more importantly, how the factor that ensured our survival has changed right along with it.
So where do we start?
Let's start with the deepest, most sustained crisis we know of. A period we can only really identify now because of modern advances in genomic analysis.
Okay, let's unpack this. We're going back nearly 1 million years, specifically to about 930,000 years ago, during the Middle Pleistocene.
And this isn't just a theory.
No, this is a profound genetic discovery. It's based on recent analysis of the DNA of living people, published in 2023.
And that genomic analysis suggests that our direct human ancestors experienced what can only be described as a catastrophic, prolonged population crash, what biologists call a hyper-bottleneck.
And the numbers are just staggering. The findings suggest the population of breeding individuals was reduced by roughly 98.7%.
98.7, think about that. Nearly everyone died.
It meant the total breeding population shrank to only about 1,280 people worldwide.
That is just astonishingly small. You have fewer than 1,300 people carrying the entire genetic blueprint for the future of our species.
But what's even more disturbing than that small number is the duration. This wasn't a quick famine. This hyperbottleneck lasted for approximately 117,000 years.
Thousands of generations.
Thousands of generations of our ancestors living with the statistical probability of extinction just hanging right over them.
And the cause seems to be strongly linked to something called the Middle Pleistocene Transition, or MPT.
What was happening then?
Well, this was a period when global glaciation cycles changed. Fundamentally. Instead of these relatively short, predictable ice ages, they became dramatically longer and more intense.
So extreme cold, extreme dryness.
Exactly, across Africa and Eurasia. And this instability just collapsed the food bases that ancient hominids relied on.
So how does surviving something like that, 117,000 years in a near-extinct state, how does that affect us now?
Well, this deep time event may be the single biggest reason why modern humans have such remarkably low genetic diversity compared to other large primates like chimpanzees.
The bottleneck acted as a filter.
A massive evolutionary filter, yeah. It just pruned away all this genetic variation we might have otherwise possessed.
But it also forced change.
Immense change. Some researchers hypothesize that the incredible pressure of this crisis triggered significant evolutionary adaptations, maybe even the fusion of ancestral chromosomes.
Which is the mechanism that explains why humans have 46 chromosomes today and chimpanzees have 48.
Precisely. In this reading, near extinction didn't just test our survival. It may have actually forced the speciation event that defined us.
That is an amazing takeaway. The most critical evolutionary step that defines our species might have been a direct byproduct of almost being wiped out.
Survival through absolute necessity.
Okay, so if we move forward in deep time,
Yeah.
the next close call was still cataclysmic, but mercifully fast compared to that.
You're talking about the Toba Supereruption?
About 74,000 years ago in Indonesia.
And the sheer scale of Toba it's almost impossible to grasp. It released at least 2,000 cubic kilometers of material.
Which is enough to, bury Manhattan under 2 miles of debris?
Something like that. And the fallout wasn't local. Ash from this one event was found 5,000 kilometers away in India in deposits up to 20 feet thick.
Wow.
And even 8,900 kilometers away on the coast of South Africa.
It was a planetary trigger for collapse.
Absolutely. The dust and sulfur aerosols shot into the stratosphere caused a multi-year volcanic winter. Temperatures just plummeted, sunlight was blocked, ecosystems stalled. We see evidence of severe population bottlenecks in almost every large mammal.
Tigers, cheetahs, chimpanzees.
All of them.
And initially, the genetic evidence suggested that humans were also reduced to maybe just 10,000 people.
Yeah.
But this is where the debate gets really interesting, right?
It does, because while the genetic data certainly points to a crisis, the archaeological evidence suggests something else. Remarkable human resilience. Adaptability.
So some groups vanished, but others innovated.
They radically innovated to survive. We can look at sites in East Africa and Ethiopia. Before Toba, these groups relied on forest and savanna resources, but after the eruption...
But food base collapses.
Right. And the archaeological sites show they radically changed their diet. They shifted their reliance toward aquatic resources, mainly fish.
So they basically invented fishing to survive the volcanic winter.
It seems so. They looked at a collapsing world and decided survival depended on high behavioral plasticity. The sites show continued sophisticated tool-making, fire use. They were actively maintaining culture, even as the planet was plunged into darkness.
So it's a mix of geographical luck and this incredible group adaptation.
Exactly.
It's staggering. Nature tried to kill us for over 100,000 years, and then again with a planetary ash cloud. But now, let's fast forward. From threats that spanned millennia to those measured in mere minutes.
And where the source of risk is purely anthropogenic, created by us.
Right. Here's where the survival mechanism becomes terrifyingly dependent on individual human judgment.
The nature of the threat just shifts entirely, from external geological forces to internal human decision-making and the flaws in our own automated systems.
Let's look at the 1983 Soviet false alarm, the Surkukov 15 incident. And we really have to set the stage here because the security environment that year was intensely hostile. Absolute hair trigger alert. Reagan's rhetoric was bellicose. And just weeks earlier, the Soviet Union had shot down Korean Airlines Flight 007. Both sides were convinced the other was planning a first strike.
So in that climate, on September 26, 1983, the Soviet Oko satellite system, the one designed specifically to detect ICBM launches, it goes off.
It reports one missile launch from the U.S., then it escalates.
5 incoming ICBMs.
And the protocol mandated that the officer on duty, Lieutenant Colonel Stanislav Petrov, had to immediately report this up the chain of command.
Which would have almost certainly resulted in a massive retaliatory strike.
All based on that automated warning. But Petrov, he was literally the human gate between that system failure and global annihilation.
And based on his engineering background, his intuition, he chose to overrule the automated system.
And his reasoning was so profound, but also so simple.
It was. He reasoned that if the U.S. were truly launching a first strike, they wouldn't send 5 missiles.
They'd send hundreds.
If not thousands,
Yeah.
simultaneously.
So he went against procedure, betting the entire future of humanity on a hunch, on a piece of critical systems analysis that hadn't been programmed into the computer.
And it was confirmed later he was right. The failure was startlingly simple. Sunlight reflecting off high-altitude clouds had fooled the sensors.
His individual judgment, informed by experience with unreliable computers, overrode the warning. It prevented a nuclear exchange.
And the paranoia of 1983 wasn't done testing humanity. Just weeks later, in November, NATO launched an exercise.
Able Archer 83.
Yes, a large-scale nuclear preparedness exercise. The problem was the lens through which the Soviets viewed it. They were already operating under extreme paranoia, fueled by an intelligence operation called Ryan.
What was Operation Ryan?
It was a massive, obsessive KGB and GRU program designed to predict any signs of a surprise nuclear first strike by NATO. They were already conditioned to see preparation where the West only saw an exercise.
And certain elements of Able Archer 83 convinced them it was a cover for the real thing.
Absolutely. The exercise included the simulated use of nuclear warheads, rehearsals for launching them, different coded messaging.
And reports of nuclear strikes being discussed over open radio frequencies.
Yes, as if the war had already gone nuclear. The Soviets interpreted these steps as the actual execution phase of a U.S. attack.
And this fear led to a genuine, critical, military alert.
Absolutely. The Soviet Union moved nuclear-capable aircraft to high alert status. There's strong evidence ICBMs were ready for launch. We were hours away from the Able Archer simulation becoming the very real war it was designed to practice.
And again, it comes down to individual human judgment. But on the other side this time.
Right. Lieutenant General Leonard Perutz in U.S. intelligence, he chose not to escalate U.S. forces in response. He had a brief window to push U.S. forces up the readiness ladder, which would have just reinforced Soviet paranoia.
And likely triggered a launch.
He chose de-escalation, a decision he later admitted was based not on informed intelligence, but on a gut feeling, an instinct.
The core lesson here is the immense danger of these kinds of exercises during times of hostile rhetoric. That's why today, clear communication is standard policy. Okay, so from paranoia and faulty wiring, let's turn to our final risk. This one doesn't target us biologically or militarily. It attacks the very infrastructure of modern civilization itself.
We're talking about the threat from our own star, the 2012 solar superstorm near-miss.
This threat doesn't rely on human conflict at all. On July 23, 2012, an unusually large and strong coronal mass ejection, or CME, occurred.
It was a space weather bullet, and it was magnified by really unfortunate circumstances. A smaller preceding CME had actually cleared the path of interplanetary debris.
So that had a clear shot.
A clear shot. It allowed the main plasma cloud to travel at an astonishing velocity, about 3,000 kilometers per second, one of the fastest ever recorded.
And how narrowly did we escape disaster?
The CME missed Earth's orbit by only 9 days. Had Earth been 9 days earlier in its orbital location, the resulting geomagnetic storm would have rivaled the 1859 Carrington event,
which knocked out telegraph systems. But the consequences then were inconveniences compared to what would happen today.
Oh, not even comparable. Had that plasma cloud hit Earth, the resulting storm would have generated massive geomagnetically induced currents, GICs.
And these currents flow through our power grids.
Right. And they don't just trip circuit breakers, they physically destroy ultra-high voltage transformers globally.
These are the hearts of the grid. They weigh hundreds of tons, they're custom built.
And that's the critical point. They take years to manufacture and install, you can't just fly them in. The estimated recovery time from that kind of collapse is 4 to 10 years.
4 to 10 years without power. What does life actually look like when water pumps, sanitation systems, communication, food distribution, it all instantly fails?
It's an unprecedented humanitarian crisis. Without continuous power, our cities become immediately unlivable. The economic cost to the U.S. alone was estimated in the trillions, but the real cost would be social, human.
What's fascinating here is the sheer contrast in survival mechanisms. Our ancestors survived the MPT through biological adaptation, Toba through innovation, the nuclear crises through human judgment. But here, in 2012,
the survival factor was zero effort. It was pure, dumb orbital geometry. It defines a new category of X-risk, technological fragility.
we've built a world that's entirely dependent on continuous power.
And that infrastructure is completely defenseless against the natural processes of our own star. Our survival was just a factor of where Earth happened to be on that specific day.
So we've reviewed 4 major close calls. We survived the Pleistocene bottleneck through biological hardiness. We survived Toba through rapid group innovation.
We survived the 1983 nuclear standoffs through individual intuition overriding the system.
And we survived the 2012 solar superstorm through sheer astronomical luck.
And if you connect that to the bigger picture, the survival mechanism has profoundly shifted. In deep time, survival was a feature of population resilience, of biology.
And today?
Today, our continued existence is increasingly contingent on sheer orbital geometry, or the decision of one person in a pressure cooker to defy protocol.
This raises a really important question. In this time of perils, where the greatest threats aren't geological but self-created fragile power grids, nuclear weapons, is relying on luck and gut instinct a sufficient strategy?
The scientific consensus now strongly suggests the probability of natural extinction events remains very low, but the probability of anthropogenic extinction in this century is far, far higher. The history of near extinction becomes not a story of resilience, but a profound lesson in responsibility.
The history we've explored shows that our survival has consistently relied on forces outside of any formal, systematic safety planning. Whether it's a spontaneous genetic mutation, the trajectory of a CME, or the intuition of an officer in a bunker. So knowing that the history of our survival is often based on serendipity, what systematic measures, beyond just making agreements about military exercises, do you believe are necessary to secure humanity's precarious foothold in the cosmos? to move survival from the domain of luck to the domain of planning. Something for you to mull over as you continue your own deep dive into the world.